Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We are talking with elder law attorney Tim Takacs, and always interesting to hear, who's come in through your door and that kind of thing. You say this time of year, you're seeing family members come in concerned about a mom or dad that may have declined. They saw it over the holidays.
Right.
That brings to my mind Alzheimer's.
Right.
The percentage of your percentage of your clients on Alzheimer's, you said
I would say probably about 50%. I mean, the ones that we're doing long-term care planning for.
And what is that journey? How long should people plan for? I mean, I guess to be grim, I guess what about that when
well,
someone's
a lot of that is I mean, and I think like you mentioned, grim is I think I prefer to call it truth-telling.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know if it happens as much as it used to when I was really starting my own, starting to do this type of work 25 or 30 years ago, is that, you would go to the doctor, our clients would go to the doctor and they could not get a straight answer.
Right.
Well, how long do I have? Well, I don't know. I mean, in other words, we've gotten a lot better about, what's my problem? How long do I have? What can I expect through this whole process? And that's gotten much, much better.
So that's good. Okay.
So, like we were chatting during the break is that, how long do you have? Okay, in other words, from the time of diagnosis to the time of death, a lot of that depends upon your age. I mean, I think the prime example here in Tennessee is Pat Summitt. She was in her late 50s when she was diagnosed. And if I recall, it was like maybe in 3 or 4 years she was gone.
Yeah.
And her decline was very quick because that's sort of characteristic of early onset, or in many cases.
Right. Okay.
For people who get a diagnosis later, maybe in their mid to late 70s or something like that, I mean, it could be a 7 to 10 year journey for them from the time of diagnosis to the time of death. And a lot of times what our clients, they will report to us, or family members will report to us, will be, well, we kind of thought that Dad has been, we started to see this a couple of years ago, but he didn't get a diagnosis maybe until maybe a year or two later. And now they're starting to see more and more of that. So sometimes it's like, okay, maybe we can date that from 7 to 10 years. All right, so you spend the first 3 years maybe you're kind of independent. You need maybe minimal assistance. Maybe the next 3 years, you're needing more and more assistance. And maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, you need a lot of assistance. And typically, maybe in those last 3 years, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, maybe you're living outside. That's maybe when you're not able to live at home.
Right. And that's what you have to, I guess, plan for financially.
Yes.
And plan for.
Right.
That's what you have to plan for.
Right. And if it's like a 7 to 10 year journey, if you come to us in year 1 or year 2, we're looking at the finances. Okay, how am I going to manage this? What do I need to do to make sure? How do I spend the money today to make sure I'm taken care of today? Because that's a lot of also what we see is well, I need to make sure I've got enough money to take care of myself, so I don't want to spend it all now. It's like spend what you need to spend today to take care of yourself today. Because you don't know what we don't know whether you're going to need nursing home care. So why save it for if you're going to need nursing home care? Because the better health that the better care that you can get now, the more likely you're going to not need nursing home care. So if you can spend, maybe you need independent living, maybe you need adult day services, maybe you need more help. So maybe you spend $1,000 a month now. Maybe that prevents you from spending $5,000 a month later.
That's a good way to look at it.
Or certainly it maybe delays it. I mean, right now there's no stopping the illness. The question is, can you keep yourself healthy? Because often our older clients who have Alzheimer's disease don't just have Alzheimer's disease. Maybe they have heart disease, COPD, they have some other chronic illness. The hardest ones sometimes are the ones, we have, I can think of just a couple of cases right now where we just recently have where, the husband comes in and his health is very bad. He's got diabetes, heart disease, all sorts of other things. His wife is 87. He's 90, his wife is 87, and physically she's fine.
Wow.
But she's the one that has, she's the one that's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So he's going, okay, I've got to, so he's now got a plan for a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the right, they have enough money to take care of themselves, you know, but at the same time, we don't know how long either one of their journeys is going to be. So how can we make sure that they get the care that they need, you know, while they're going through the journey together? You know, and if one of them, if he predeceases her, well, then what's going to happen to her? She's not going to be able to, he's right now her primary caregiver. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's becoming more and more difficult for him. So how do we supplement that care for his spouse who thinks there's nothing wrong with her?
The population's aging, right? Mm-hmm. This is becoming more and more important to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you first came on, there weren't many people doing this.
That's right.
Are there more people doing it now?
There are a lot more doing this.
And it's just it's something we need to think about.
It is. I mean, and then in some ways that's very gratifying, because I think, I mean, I see people from time to time, you know, they sort of get into it, but they really, you know, they find that it's more difficult than, you know, and then they get out. You know, but the ones that are kind of like, who are staying with it, they stay with it. Mm-hmm. You know, so I've seen many of our colleagues now that have been doing this for 15 or 20, almost 20 years, 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
Almost as long as I have. I'm still, you know, until the other ones die. I shouldn't say this. Until the other ones die out.
Right.
You know, I'm not the senior elder law attorney in Tennessee, but I've been doing it for quite some time.
Wow. So you're not the senior elder.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. There's 2 or 3 of them that's actually been doing it longer than I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Their hearts. Yeah.
But some of the things we talk about are the cost of nursing home care. We talk about wills. We talk about trusts. Mm-hmm. And I want to hit on all of those things. But let's talk cost of nursing home care, just so people, when we start thinking about we've got to prepare for that, what are we realistically talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about around $8,000 to $8,500 a month for nursing home care,
which is very depressing.
Yeah, about 100, almost 100, depending on where you are. You know, I mean, in other words, urban area or maybe rural area. You know, we're talking about, you know, $80,000 to $100,000 a year.
So that's tough.
That is tough. Yeah, and a lot of people, as you know, I mean, they don't have that money. Yes.
And so what do they do? What do you do if you don't?
So what happens is that if they ever need nursing home care, or, you know, then they're looking at, can they get the state Medicaid program to cover the cost? But for those of you who've been watching the show for a long time, and you know, we've talked about this, regularly, is that the way the state Medicaid program works is that if you're not married, you have no spouse, you can have a house as long as your house is worth less than about $550,000 or so. There's an equity cap.
Okay.
But you can have no more than $2,000. Money in the bank, CDs, stocks and bonds, mutual funds, all of that. So now there's not a lot of people out there with a $500,000 house and less than $2,000. Although I guess there probably are some. Mm-hmm. You know, but the idea is that if you're not married, you have no spouse, and you're looking for nursing home care, then typically you're going to be private pay until you get your money down to that level.
Okay.
You know, and then when your money is down to the $2,000, you know, and then Medicaid starts paying, the state Medicaid program starts paying. Well, they don't leave you any money to keep your house, because you've got to basically spend all of your income, you know, on your share of cost of the nursing home. They let you keep $50.
Okay. All right.
You know, and that's not going to help. It's not going to help maintain your house.
No. You're not getting a new roof or new air
conditioning. None of that is like that. So as a practical matter, unless children step in, if there are children, you know, that are trying to help preserve the house, but the state has a right to recoup, you know, what the state paid out.
And this is what's disturbing for a lot of people.
Yes,
and Jennifer Krause has done a story with you on this. You've been on the main channel, Channel 5, talking about this. But this is what's disturbing. And so I'm interested in, again, for you to kind of lay that out.
You know, and I always say is that if you are, for a married person, don't worry about it. Okay, so your spouse goes into the nursing home, you know, he or she qualifies for Medicaid. then the state cannot recoup as long as there's a surviving spouse. Okay, but that doesn't really end, because here's the thought is that, okay, well, I'm good. Tim says I don't have to worry about this. But I'd say, well, okay, let me give you something to worry about. For one, is if you're the spouse at home and your other spouse is in the nursing home, let's say your husband's in the nursing home, are you going to survive him? Okay. Now, if you are certain that you are going to survive him, I can tell you more and more about what you should do. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we can't. But that's one of those things that we don't. We have no certainty on that.
Right.
So one of the things that we want to make sure is the spouse in the nursing home doesn't need to own anything. Okay, so typically, we own a house together. My husband's in the nursing home, so the house, he needs to transfer the house to the wife.
Okay.
Okay. No penalty for that. No 5-year look-back period. No nothing. All right. Husband dies. Doesn't matter how long he's been in the nursing home and on Medicaid. When he dies, he will own nothing. And it's only when that spouse owns nothing, does the state not have a right to recoup.
Interesting. Okay.
But husband and wife, they own the house together. He never transferred it to the wife. Then he's on Medicaid. If he's on Medicaid for 5 years, he dies. The house now is totally owned by the wife. Mm-hmm. Well, the state of Tennessee is going to wait till the wife dies, because they will come in and they will file a claim against her estate, because they'll say, well, your husband owns something at the time of his death, so we have a right to recoup.
That's when they go back and they take the house, right?
Yeah, they have a right to come in and they file, they can open up a probate estate, and they do that.
And we're seeing that more.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I know that, the lawyers the lawyers for TennCare, they are very good at this. They are very fair, because, and what I mean by fair is that, okay, the law says X. So if the law says X, that's what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And that means that, if there's, like, one of the things, Ben, I'm taking Ben as, he tells me that one of the things that there are exceptions to estate recovery, because if you are survived by a disabled child, there's no estate recovery. Okay, so husband's in the nursing home, or unmarried person is in the nursing home and he dies, he owns a house, no estate recovery because there's a disabled child. And he's told me, he says, I want people to know that, because he's not going to recover. He's not going to try to recover anything, because that would be wrong. Right. He can't recover. So there are exceptions to the rule. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean his job is to go out there and tell everybody to do all of this and pre-plan, because that's not his job.
Right.
It's our job, to help our clients to know what's going on, and to help our clients follow the rules, and make sure they're in compliance. And it's also our job is to make sure the state of Tennessee, whether it's TennCare during the application process or at the end, when the state comes in and says, well, we want to recoup what we can, and we say, no, you can't because X, Y, Z, and they're going to say fine.
Wow.
Because we know what, they know what the rules are.
That's why it's so important. Let's go to Pat here.
Yeah.
Pat. Hello, Pat. Are you there?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
My mom is in a nursing home, and a few months ago, back in the summer, she had a hospital stay, and no matter how many times during that stay that I've filled out information of address, mailing address, telling them, I'm taking care of taking care of the bills. I look up a few months after thinking, I never did get a bill, and I know the insurance paid their part. Mm-hmm. So then I hunt down trying to figure out if there is a bill, and sure enough there was, but they had sent it to the nursing home.
Okay.
That she last stayed in, and after so much time had passed, they'd passed that bill on to a collection agency, and They gave me their number. I reached out to them, and with HIPAA laws, they can't tell you anything at all.
Right.
They say you can send them money, but they won't even tell you how much money to send them.
Really?
Well,
they won't tell. Oh my goodness.
One thing, Pat, that and I think you probably, if you start thinking about this, is this was your mother's bill. It's not yours. I mean, in other words, I mean, you can always tell them, sort of in a nice way, to go pound sand. You're talking to the wrong. You're not talking to the debtor. You don't owe that money. It's your mother that owes it. Now, if she is in a nursing home, then if she was on TennCare, and I don't know if she was private pay or TennCare, but if she was
private pay.
Okay, so then if there was a bill, then you either submit that to. I mean, I'm trying to think about what bill would not be. Is it? Was there a Medicare supplemental policy? Because most of our older clients, they don't have those co-payments. They're covered by somebody else.
Right.
So a lot of times I'm wondering if it never got submitted to the insurance company. I mean, sometimes that happens. But I think the real lesson here, the takeaway, at least one takeaway, anything is that you don't owe this bill, Pat. And you can always tell them is don't call this number again because I'm not the person that owes the money.
Well, it's not. I was reaching out to them just knowing that there's, from like Blue Cross at the time that it said our share.
Yeah.
But I never got a bill from the hospital and reached out to them months later, and then they notified me, we'll then send it to collections, and they had been. I don't know how many bills.
Well, does that impact like a house or something? Well, have they put a lien on a house that?
No, absolutely not. Nothing's happened so far. I'm just wondering if something can happen, and we're talking probably maybe $1,500, $2,000.
Okay, what about all right? Let's
old bill.
Yeah. Okay, what can something happen there?
I mean, they can. I mean, mostly what they can do is they can file suit against her if it's a bona fide debt. Obviously, I mean they're going to assume it's a bona fide debt, but for $1,500 or $2,000, bringing a lawsuit is not typically fruitful for most collection agencies. Now, I'm not in that business, but when you start thinking about the numbers, their job is to make phone calls, and the easiest people to collect from are the people that agree to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean, nobody, those businesses don't want to go to court.
Yeah.
They don't want to, because that's costly. It's been, and a lot of times it's just not fruitful. It just doesn't bring any money.
But you're saying that it's not. He could say, well, it's not. You've got the wrong person. She's dead, right?
I don't know if she's dead or not. But
if she is deceased, then what happens? Does it go to him?
No. Then because her debt dies with her, except that her estate would owe the money. So for $2,000, they would have to open up an estate, and then they would file a claim. Now, chances are they're not going to open up a probate estate, for $2,000 because that's costly.
All right, let's go to another call. Let's go to Robert here. Hello, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
I just want to know, I own property, and I got my son as survivorship, and I have Medicare. Could Medicare come in and make him or my daughter want to sell the property?
Okay, so are you on Medicare or Medicaid or TennCare? Medicare. Okay, Medicare is not, everybody who's old, every 65 years and older is on Medicare, almost. So now Medicare does not have, they don't have a right to recoup.
Okay.
It's only Medicaid that does.
Okay, so if I bought some more property, could I put it in my son and daughter's name and them do the same thing with survivorship going to both of them?
I mean, you could, yes. Okay,
and they would.
Right. So if I think what I'm hearing Robert say is he owns real estate,
right?
And then he buys it and he puts his children's name on, as co-owners.
Right.
Now, is that smart?
Well, we talked about that at the beginning of the show, right? I think, based on what I know about you, you would say, maybe you would at least say be careful. I think you might say don't do it. But
Yeah.
what would you say?
I would say don't do it.
'Cause usually an attorney's going to say be careful, so that's a given. Okay.
Well,
but you're just going to say don't do it.
Here's my thing is that, okay, and maybe, maybe I'm premature because Robert and I haven't had this conversation to say, okay, Robert, why do you think this is a good idea?
Right.
Tell me why that you think it would be better to do it in some other way. Because, for one, is that if they own the property jointly, as father and son and daughter, then they're basically they have three shares. Okay. Now, for one, as we've already talked about, is that if the son goes bankrupt or he becomes disabled or incapacitated, or he rides down the road and hit a bus full of school children, then those assets are at risk. Okay. Now, so I'm thinking so what's Robert's goal here? Is he trying to make sure that when he passes, his children, just automatically assume ownership? That's an easy problem to solve. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't require him to add his children's names to the, considering the risk versus the advantages and disadvantages. It doesn't require him, if that's the only thing he's trying to do. Because even if you do something like that, it can create tax problems. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Robert buys a piece of property, he pays $50,000 for it in 2020, and he adds his children's names to the account, or to the deed. All right, now he dies 15 years later, and that property is worth $200,000. Good return. Okay, now when he dies, and the children decide to sell it, is there a capital gains tax they're going to have to pay? Most likely there is.
Okay. Because their names were on it.
Because they were joint owners.
Right.
And they can't say they inherited it. They didn't inherit it because they owned it all along.
Right.
So they don't get a step up in the tax basis. Right. I mean, death is good for beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as mom dies and she leaves you the house, that house that she and daddy bought 50 years ago for $20,000, it's now worth $600,000. Guess what? You inherited it the value of $600,000. So you sell it, no capital gains tax. But if mom gave it to you, she also gave you her tax basis.
That's interesting.
And then you sell it for $600,000, and now you have a $580,000 capital gain.
Right.
There's a lot of tax you have to pay on that.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of thing where people do stuff.
You don't think about
and
that.
They don't think about the consequences of it. When often there's another way to do it, to make, so that kind of stuff does not come back and bite their children.
All right, good calls from Pat, Robert. If you want to call in, there's the number 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.